Good morning, Rise and Freedom. It's 7:04. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show with Austin Petersen at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here on the program today. Thank you so much to Andy Opperman, Chris Morrill, Michael Knipp, Melissa Roysden, Matt Unruh, for all joining us so early on the live stream. We're glad to have you here today. At the top of the show today, we're going to react to the interview last night with, Ye on Timcast. It was a bit of a train wreck, as you might expect, but bigger train wreck than you might have imagined. We'll talk a little bit about that at the top of the program. And then at 7:18 this morning, Joe Biden's cross-dressing energy vice president charged with felony theft at Washington, D.C. Reagan Airport. We're going to talk about that, as well as a few other things related to the Biden administration. At 7:35 this morning, Jon Miltimore from the Foundation for Economic Education is going to join us, just like Bert Crash is joining us over there in the live stream. Good morning, Bert. Thanks to all of our friends over there for joining us on YouTube. And Jon Miltimore will talk to us a little bit about the libertarian message behind Conan the Barbarian's Riddle of Steel. And this morning at 8 a.m., we'll have Camellia Peterson, who is not related to me. Sometimes she wishes she was. We'll talk to Camellia at 8 about Elon's latest back and forth with Apple. Apparently, Apple is potentially going to deplatform Elon Musk's Twitter, which would be kind of wild. Now Elon is talking about starting up his own phone company, setting up his own cell phone, a competitor to Apple. Please say it is true. Wouldn't you love to see it? Yeah, we'd love to see something like that. More competition is good, right? Even if you don't like Elon Musk, but say you like capitalism, wouldn't you like to see just a little bit more competition against Apple? Besides, who uses those iPhones anyway? Android for life, bitches. And then at 8:30 this morning, ways to be a better husband and father. That father was included in the article that I'm going to share with you, although I'm not a dad, so I won't lecture anybody on how to be a better father just yet. But I've got a year under my belt of being a husband, so I guess I can talk to you guys about that. How's everybody doing this morning? Give the stream a like, give us a shout out, introduce yourself if it's your first time on the stream this morning. Will Perry says that he'd buy a Tesla phone. Absolutely. I'd love to hear it. All right. So I know why you're all here this morning. You want to hear my reaction to to Kanye West on Timcast last night. All right. So I've got what I think is pulled up probably the most relevant article that was written last night about it. And I'm going to play a clip for you of the interview, of some of the highlights. But Amber Athey, who is a writer over at Spectator last night, was actually at the interview backstage and was writing about it, says that she spoke to Tim Pool about what he was thinking about bringing Kanye West and Milo Yiannopoulos and Nick Fuentes on the show because, it's the biggest story in American politics, which is what Tim Pool was questioning here, how to properly strike the balance between not giving an open platform to the abhorrent views that are espoused by the three men. And then, of course, the question of covering a story in American politics. This is something that my wife and I were discussing last night when we were watching the program. How do you conduct an interview like that while not trying to, platform these, anti-Semitic views that Kanye West and Nick Fuentes clearly hold? While trying to get from them the story, which is important, which was the sit down with the former president of the United States last week, because that is a legitimate story and it's something that I think is of national interest. And if they had been able to have that conversation, that would have been great. But they didn't have that conversation, and Kanye West stormed off of the show, and I'll play that clip again for you here in just a moment. But Tim Pool was quoted by Amber Athey as saying, "This is probably going to be the biggest show I've ever done, and it's going to get us in trouble, and it opens up a whole bunch of risk." Absolutely. But the entire news cycle over the past week and a half was what was going on with Trump and these guys, and then we've got an opportunity to be like, hey, we're going to get these questions answered. I can certainly sympathize with how Tim felt about that. And he continued on saying, am I going to make this a wag the finger moment at them? Oh, don't hate the Jews. Or are we going to try and understand what's going on behind the scenes? And that's the challenge, Tim Pool said. Do I make this my opportunity to virtue signal about how much I despise their views? Or do I say, look, I don't agree with what you've said. I think it's awful, in fact, but we're here to learn about what's been going on. Ye shows up, he arrives in the studio, and Tim Pool conducted the interview, and we saw what we saw. For those of you who don't know, he walked off of the set. Good morning, guten tag, Joni Rankin. Nice to have you here. John R. as well, John Rail. Glad to have you. Good morning to my beautiful wife, Stephanie. All right, so let's get to the clip right now. Let's head on over to our Twitter scene so that we can take a look at what happened. Now, I got to say a shout out to the guy who cut this clip. You'll see his YouTube channel pop up in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. So let's make sure that you give him a like and a follow for cutting this clip. I cut down his clip as well and edited it from his. So
I think they've been extremely unfair to you.
You'll hear a voice in the background or narration, and that was the YouTuber who initially made this cut that I then cut down for you. Let's continue.
Who was they, though? We can't say they is, can we?
Press. I'm not using I don't use the word as the way I guess you guys use. I'm talking
about. It is them, though, isn't it? I mean, because
no.
because when you
we're talking about the Jews here.
think about it, consider it. In 2018.
What do you mean it's not?
What do I mean? Like, okay, so how about you leaving?
Are you referring to the press?
He's gone.
So I promise I won't do any more Tim Pool coverage on this channel for a while.
So this is the decoy voice character guy. This is the guy who cut this initial clip, but he's the one who's talking, and you'll sometimes hear his narration. I think he did a really good job of breaking this down. Make sure you like and subscribe to his channel as well.
Kanye West, or Ye, storming off Timcast IRL after getting even the slightest amount of pushback just shows how unrealistic Ye's presidential hopes are. So let's give this some context. Now, it won't be in chronological order because, as you can see, Ye is a bit scatterbrained.
What I was fighting for was the IP, so my children could, I'm sorry, just sometimes I think about 7 thoughts at one time, because anything I see, I come up with like 7 answers to it and then just choose what it is.
And I saw that moment live there. I think that was a telling moment on this program because it shows how scatterbrained Kanye is. And after the interview was over, my wife and I were discussing this, and I think that this shows that Kanye is deeply troubled. And he's running for president of the United States. He was left by his wife. He's making these anti-Semitic remarks. He's in big trouble. But they're going to talk about Britney Spears here in just a moment. Celebrities in trouble. Not a new thing in the media, but there's reason to sympathize with Kanye, in my view, but we'll get to that in just a moment.
And Tim Pool was discouraged from even having this conversation.
A lot of people were saying on the right, specifically, don't platform them. And I said, well, I want to understand what they're thinking and why they're thinking it. They're involved in what may be the biggest news story of the past week, and we have an opportunity to sit down and talk.
But Ye was
right, and it is a legitimate news story. But the legitimate news story is not the anti-Semitic remarks that Kanye is making, because I think Kanye is saying things like this in large part because he's not properly medicated. And this comes up again later.
I want to give insight as to why he's been saying what he has been recently.
There's different beliefs about our bloodlines, like the documentary that Kyrie posted. And in general, America has been left ignorant and history has been changed. So when we start questioning things,
Ye went on to talk about the handlers being planted to control him.
From the fashion world, where they use this plant named Gabby, who's obviously like some kind of CIA agent, knows nothing about fashion. This is a certain thing. When someone can't dress, you know that they're not like a fashion person.
And made some pretty drastic analogies to how he was being controlled.
It was like American History X. Like my head was on the side of the curve, and the exact people that I called out kicked my head. We found out that my trainer was a MK Ultra Canadian intelligence.
He worked in the defense research and development.
They tried.
So in terms of what Kanye is saying here, so let's give some context here. Kanye is talking about him being controlled. And, again, we're going to come to Britney Spears here in just a minute. I mean, there were probably a lot of handlers and people that were putting pressure on Kanye to, quote, get medicated. But, in terms of how much medication that he should be on, versus, the people who are controlling may or may not be doctors. I don't know about this person that he's talking about that he's claiming was part of DARPA, but let's continue.
To medicate me, I was exhausted. They wrongly diagnosed me. And they when I asked them, how much lithium did you want to put me on exactly? It took them 4 days to answer because they were embarrassed about the amount, right? And I refused to take this, right? You understand that if I had taken the medication, I would not be here, and it would have been, he was deeply troubled. We miss him. We love his music, though.
Yeah, and Kanye's making a good point there. He's talking about the amount of lithium that they wanted to give him. They were embarrassed by how much they wanted to give him, so it took him time before they could actually come out and say how much they thought Kanye should be medicated. And I certainly feel for him there, but I think it's fairly clear that he probably does need some form of medication, but he's probably, yeah, what Quest Fanning is saying here in the live stream makes a good point. He says, believe it or not, Tim made a valid point about the difference in politics. But first he said both Ye and Trump are too used to being surrounded by yes men. Yes, that is a big problem, and I think that that's at the heart of this. And and Quest went on to say, Tim makes a valid point about the difference between business negotiations and politics. In business, walking away from the table is a power move, but it's not in politics. Good point there. And Rare Camellia says, lithium is terrible to be on. I've never been on it, but I mean, I can imagine that a lot of people who wanted to shut Kanye up probably wanted to drug him and medicate him so that he would shut up and go away and not say the things that he's saying. Not that I agree with the things that he's saying or that they think the things that he's saying is good, but I mean, he's a free American and has every right to say what he has to say, no matter how abhorrent they are, in which Tim Pool, I think, did a fairly good job of calling him out for that, because Kanye didn't want to talk about the news story. Kanye didn't want, apparently, from what we understand, Kanye didn't want to talk about the actual news story that he was brought on there to talk about, which was the meeting with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, because like it or not, Donald Trump is the news story. Trump is the former president of the United States. What Donald Trump does really is newsworthy. What Kanye West and Milo Yiannopoulos and this Nick Fuentes character are doing is the sideshow. Is the sideshow good for clicks and for getting, 36 people watching my live stream at 7:15 in the morning on a Tuesday morning? Sure, yes, absolutely. But let's be real here. The real story is what's going on with the former president of the United States.
Well, they would have Britney Spears too. Britney, when she went in, she was tired, she was exhausted, she was in a bad way, but 10 years of that medication wrecked her brain. You can see it now. You can
correct.
see there's not much of her left.
Now, Ye isn't the only person to discuss being.
Pause this for just a moment. Yes, if you're not on Instagram and you're not seeing what's going on with Britney Spears, it's absolutely terrible. I say this as somebody who, for years, I think I joked about this the other day with some friends. I said, for years, I wanted to see Britney Spears naked. And then when I finally got to see Britney Spears naked, I said to myself, I wish that I had not seen that, and I wish that she would stop. And I wish that somebody who loved Britney would help take care of her. But the problem is that it seems that there's nobody who loves Britney enough to really help her take care of her. They had her on drugs for years, and as Milo Yiannopoulos is talking about there, it screwed her up. It destroyed her. Now she seems like her brain is completely gone from what they've done to her. And I don't know what the potential long-term effects are of this drug lithium, but if it's what happened to Britney Spears, I can't say whether or not, being unmedicated is better than being medicated. I mean, I guess, if you're being violent, it's one thing. But I mean, Kanye West is not being violent. Britney Spears is not being violent. They're just troubled. So I'm really conflicted on this whole idea. It seems like they need medication, but it's, what? Medicines that take care of mental illness are not cures. Right? They're not cures for your problems. They're really just putting, delaying or suppressing the problems that you already have. So, this guy goes on for a moment. Let's continue.
You question everything. But then Ye says this.
Hey, I wasn't doing that. I was just gerrymandering the lawyers and the Hollywood executives and the people at the bank that debanked me and then froze my accounts. It's like we want to jump into protecting the idea that we can't put a net around something, right? But that's been my job as a producer, to take, a Roy Ayers sample and put a James Brown drum and put it within a 2-minute, 3-minute song. That's the way I actually think, and that's the way I talk.
And I'm sorry, Ye, you might have some actual points about celebrities being controlled in Hollywood, but
And then my wife, Stephanie, who is a therapist, has jumped into the stream, and we appreciate her insight. Stephanie says there are other bipolar disorder medications out there now, so you don't have to be on lithium. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear a little bit more, Stephanie, if you want to share more on the stream. We appreciate that. Your insight is really valuable.
we're in China right now is my fault.
The Jewish people say, it's the Holocaust, this happened, and you can't say anything about it. We can't take their pain away. No one's going to denounce the fact that they tried to lock me up.
And no, there's no world where you can compare being a Holocaust victim to being prosecuted for tax evasion.
Pause. Yes, I realize that the Holocaust is one of the greatest mass murders and genocides in all of history. But as a libertarian, I have to pause you right there. Being a victim of the government's extortion schemes and being threatened with imprisonment because you don't pay taxes is not comparable to the Holocaust in terms of scale, but it is comparable to the Holocaust in the terms of of crimes committed by a government against its people. So you're wrong there, bro. Call me anti-Semitic, if you will.
So Tim Pool does a pretty great job on calling Ye out.
I think the issue is, one way to put it, is you're expounding upon a localization issue that you've witnessed, right? Let me clarify.
What is Tim saying there? So when he says you're expounding on a localization incident, right? So what he's saying is that Kanye West has had a bad experience with some Jewish people, and then he turns around and applies that to all Jews, which I really think is the important point here, because it would be wrong for someone to say, well, a lot of blacks steal, so all blacks steal, right? Which is probably what people like Nick Fuentes and others do when it comes to the Jews and when it comes to blacks and when it comes to other groups. But that is the hallmark of a collectivist philosophy. Remember, this is, I can't remember my Ayn Rand quote here when it comes to individualism. If somebody wants to share that in the live stream chat, I would certainly be grateful. But this is really the difference between people who hold a collectivist ideology. People like Nick Fuentes, who is a national socialist, right? Very different from an individualist like myself, who looks at people not as in groups, but as people, as individuals who make individual decisions, right? Do people sometimes band together to make collective decisions? Sure. But you never get 100% of people on board. Not 100% of the people in the South and the Confederacy wanted to be a part of the Confederacy and wanted to secede. Not 100% of the people in the North wanted the Civil War and wanted to go to war against the South, right? There was those people who were called Copperheads. So Tim, I think, nails it here. I wish they could have gone on for a longer discussion, of course, but I think Kanye, pussed out, to be quite honest, and ran away like a little child, a baby. I think that Kanye's antics here were childish. Let's continue.
There are a handful of people that you see are Jewish in a certain place, and then you associate Judaism with the power, whereas I view that as not relevant to it. Like, yeah, you're substantially more powerful than I am, but I don't view what you're doing as an issue of black people.
Right.
Yeah, but have you ever heard the term the black vote?
But Ye isn't hearing it.
Yeah, but they're not in lockstep. Like you say, the black vote. But I mean, if there's one thing that we've learned in the most recent elections, there is no the Hispanic vote, and there is no the black vote. All right. If anything, the only vote that you could say might be in lockstep is, single white liberal females. Let's talk about them. Let's put them in a group in a box and slap them around. Not physically, of course. In Minecraft.
Bringing this up, you're gonna ask my opinion on it. I'm gonna disagree with you.
I didn't ask your opinion on it. You jumped into it.
But
I don't care about your opinion. I like your opinion on how we win an election.
As he threatened to walk off multiple times.
Like, I'm literally gonna walk the F off the show if I'm sitting up here having to, talk about, you can't say that it was
like you're extrapolating.
I'm going to order with the last of my money that's available in a different account. I'm going to order a PJ before I sit and have another Lex Friedman.
What is a PJ?
Set up conversation.
Until he finally did.
What do you mean it's not?
What do I mean? Like, okay, so how about, you leaving?
So what do you mean it's not the Jews?
He's gone.
And Tim calls out
What a baby.
Ye's fiasco for what it is.
What do I even do? Other than ask him, please elaborate on this. Are you referring to individuals, or are you quite literally blaming?
Here's the thing. Whether or not Kanye is in need of some Lamotrin for his bipolar disorder is one thing, right? But he's a fully grown adult human, right? Responsible for his actions. And if he's not responsible for his actions, then he doesn't need to be running for president of the United States, right? It's obviously a sideshow. Let's continue here.
An entire group of people for the fact that powerful individuals are causing you harm. The moment we got into the point of any kind of adversarial questioning, they were done and they walked out. They didn't have to have their ideas challenged, but they got the PR.
And look, everyone got what they wanted out of this.
PJ is a private jet, says Will Perry. Thank you. Yes, I had absolutely no idea. And this guy's right. Decoy Voice. Make sure you follow him on YouTube. Everybody got what they wanted out of this. Yeah, for sure. They got the publicity. Tim Pool got the publicity. The only people who didn't get what they wanted out of it was us, the audience, because the fact is that we were wanting to find out the actual news story, and the actual news story was them meeting with the president of the United States. Bert Crash says, I watched this and I don't believe it was Kanye's fault. Tim has been getting egotistical, thinks he always has to be the smartest person in the room. Should have let him talk about whatever he wanted. Okay. Yes and no. I do think that Tim probably was talking too much during this interview. Probably should have let Kanye speak a little bit more, not cut him off so much. But you can understand that Tim was in a difficult position here because on one hand, he didn't want to platform these views, which he finds abhorrent, the anti-Semitic views. But if that was the case, Tim shouldn't have had Fuentes on. He should have said, hey, we're just going to have Kanye on here to talk about the president. It didn't make sense to have Milo and Nick Fuentes on if that was the case. That was probably a mistake. And, talking too much, probably a mistake. But Tim was wanting to platform the story, which was the meeting with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. That was the important story. Why Nick Fuentes walked off, I don't know. I don't know, and I understand. I guess they're there with Kanye, and he's a bigger star than them. So if he leaves, they're going to leave. But quite frankly, I think that we all lost out on that one. What do you think? I got to go to a commercial break. There's 46 people watching. It's huge. It's awesome. I appreciate it. You're probably going to be like, oh, commercial break. I'm going to disappear. Other YouTubers don't do this. Yes, but other YouTubers aren't like me. Okay? I'm special. I'm going to do commercials because I'm going to go get ready for my next segment. We've got guests coming in. I've got to get them into the studio and do all that kind of stuff. All right? So stick around. The commercials are fun anyway. You'll like them. If you've never watched them before, it's your first time here, introduce yourself, make some friends in the live stream. Those are awesome people, and we'd love to know who you are because we like to make friends. Join the Cantina crew here. Stick around, introduce yourself, and we'll see you when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com. Good morning. It's 7:27. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. I came back from commercial break a little bit earlier because obviously we've got an enormous audience here, and I know that they're all chomping at the bit to talk about this topic. Let's head over back to our Twitter weirdness scene so that we can see this. So we're talking about the interview, or I guess somewhat non-interview, maybe semi-interview with Kanye West, Milo Yiannopoulos, and Nick Fuentes last night on Timcast. Let's play the I think most important part of this clip
unfair
here.
To you. I think. Who is they though? We can't say they is, can we?
Press. I'm not using I don't use the word as the.
Pause right there. Okay. Just that little exchange right there, I think, is a really important one there, where Tim Pool starts this by saying, I think they've been completely unfair to you. And Kanye, I think rightfully, in the context of this discussion, asks, who is they though? And puts Tim back on his heel there for just a moment. Let's play that again.
Been extremely unfair to you. Who is they though? We can't say who they is, can we?
Oh, isn't it?
See that smile on Kanye's face, and then the way that Fuentes reacts to that, he's like chomping at the bit. He's like, here comes some. I'm ready to hate some Jews today, man.
Extremely unfair to you. Who is they though? We can't say who they is, can we? Press. I'm not using the. I don't use the word as the way I guess you guys use. I'm talking.
I don't use the word. I guess is the way you just say it, Tim. What's the word here? Just say it. Kanye wants you to say it. Nick Fuentes is like.
It is them though, isn't it? I mean.
Look at his face. It is them, though, isn't it? The Jews.
Because because when you think about it, consider
thank you, Tim.
In 2018.
What do you mean it's not? What do I mean? Like, okay, so how about?
What do you mean it's not the Jews? It's not the Jews. Oh. I want to be president of the United States. I want to be president of the United States. How dare you speak to me like that? Imagine Kanye West going into a meeting with Putin. Like, what do you mean it's not the Jews, Putin?
He leaving?
Yeah, he's leaving.
Are you afraid of the press?
Are you afraid of the press? Who asked that? Was that you, Luke? Was that Luke Rudowski? You know what? Honestly, Luke, good for you, man. You got some balls there saying that.
I'll say it right now. You guys want to bring that stuff up, and then think we're not going to have a conversation.
Have the discussion.
You think Ye's going to come in here and say, "Here's my pain, here's my suffering." I'm going to say, "I hear you," and then he's going to say, "And it was Jewish people," and I'm going to be like, "Okay, but don't you consider?" So I'm not going to do this. I refuse.
So then, okay. So there's two sides to this here. So on one side of things, Tim is trying to get the story about what happened with him, Donald Trump, and all that stuff. And then on the other side, if he's going to be spouting a bunch of anti-Semitic stuff, Tim has got to push back on that, which is not the story, and he doesn't want to be talking about it anyway. Anyways, it's a mess. It's a nightmare. Let's talk about what's happening in China. My buddy, Jon Miltimore, he's the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. We're going to talk about the protests that are breaking out in China, and then Conan the Barbarian and the Riddle of Steel, the libertarian message that's in that. We'll talk to Jon Miltimore about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you?
I want to ask you today to join Petersen's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Petersen's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion, delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Displayed proudly on your coffee table, or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Hello, I'm George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. It's 7:35. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here today. We've got a lot of people watching the show this morning, trying to get our thoughts on what happened last night on Tim Pool's show, Timcast, where Kanye West stormed out after being challenged by Tim Pool over his thoughts on, well, the Jewish people. Joining us now is a man who is decidedly not Jewish, Jon Miltimore. He's the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. I don't know. Maybe we've all got a little Jew-in-us here and there. I guess if you've accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, then you do have a Jew in you, don't you, Jon?
I certainly do, if that's the reasoning. Absolutely. Morning, Austin.
Good morning, Jon. I guess you're the only person in the world who didn't watch Timcast last night.
You know, like, it was one of those things. I don't know what I was doing. I think we were watching Christmas Vacation last night. I got unplugged from some of this stuff once in a while. I will be watching this morning, I'll tell you that. It sounds like a heck of a show.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of people who are watching us this morning, and I certainly can't, with the fact that we've got 70 people over on YouTube and probably a bunch of people all over the place. More than likely over 100 people watching us live right now. They want to hear us talk about this. You probably heard the news about Kanye West's meeting with Donald Trump last week. He sat down with Nick Fuentes, who you probably have heard a thing or two about, as well as Milo Yiannopoulos. Kanye West goes on Tim Pool last night and tries to have a discussion about the Jews. Tim Pool wasn't having it, was trying to push back on him because he wanted to talk about the real newsworthy event, which was that sit-down meeting. The key topics that I think were brought up were the fact that Kanye West was, being medicated out of existence, essentially. And, he probably does suffer with some form of bipolar disorder, but they were talking about what's happened to Britney Spears, which, I don't know if you've seen what's happened to her in recent years, but she's really, I think suffered from years of being over-medicated. And now it seems Kanye's in the same boat. So do you have an opinion on this whole mess at all, Jon?
Like I said, I'm still getting caught up on it. I am. The first thing you told me when Tim Pool had these guys on, I'm like, what's he thinking? Even though I like, civil discourse and having this discussion. And I think what's important is you have someone on your show that has some of these views. You challenge them. That's what it's about. And that's how you air ideas, you discuss them. The fact that Kanye stormed off kind of shows, maybe his ideas need re-examining, right? The truth is, for many years, like, I've looked at Kanye West, and he's brilliant in some ways. He's a brilliant marketer. He's a brilliant entrepreneur, performer. He's got some real problems, and he's got some real follow ideas. And I think what you do is you do what Tim Pool did. You invite him, you have him on, you can talk about these things, you hash it out. But Kanye should, what he should be doing? He should be looking to help Kanye right now, and that's trying to fix his own life. I think he probably has people enabling him, that telling him to keep doing some of the things he's doing, instead of just trying to clean his own room, fix his house.
Yeah,
what he should be doing.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen, I'm speaking to Jon Miltimore, who's the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. We've got a lot of new people joining us this morning. I'm seeing 86 people in the chat this morning. Probably the biggest show we've ever done this morning right now to talk about this topic. Nirina LMD says the whole impromptu Timcast was orchestrated to change the subject off Adam Kriegler. But you were also, I think I saw another comment from Nirina where she was talking about Milo. Oh, here we go. What was he thinking? First, Milo is basically a fraud. Fuentes is a wannabe. To your point there, John, I think people are like Fuentes and Milo probably are using Ye, riding his coattails. I mean, when you're that rich and you're that famous, John, we've known people like that and been around them. They're surrounded by yes men. Probably the same thing with Donald Trump. And the one thing that they need is the one thing that they can't stand. They need to be surrounded by people who are willing to tell them no, people who are willing to contradict them. I mean, this is kind of like the classic. I mean, it's like King Lear. I don't know if you're a Shakespeare fan, but King Lear was surrounded by people who never told him no. He went mad and insane, and he pushed away his two daughters, Goneril and Regan. Man, I'm really reaching back here for my Shakespeare references. And he pushed away the only people who loved him and brought closer to him the people who lied to him and wanted to use him. I mean, it's really sad. I think that he's being used.
Yeah, it's one of those things I've said for years. The mark of a true friend is somebody that can tell you when you're being crazy, right? When they're going to tell you, no, hey, you gotta look at what you're doing and you gotta fix it. And you ask yourself, do you have people in your life that will do that for you? And how will you respond? Like, there's some people, like I've tried to, say I want to tell them that they're going off the rails, but I know they're not going to hear it, right? Are you able to listen to those people you trust in your life? Kanye doesn't have that. And the truth is, I think most people don't have that because it's one of two things. Either they don't have the friend that will do it, or they're going to react aggressively, defensively when somebody does try to say, hey, you know what you need to do here? You need to start working about this. You need to stop doing this. And if you don't have that in your life, try to get it.
If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Jon Miltimore from the Foundation for Economic Education. Since we do have such a massive audience this morning for the Wake Up America show, I'd like to ask you for a favor. If you wouldn't mind, subscribe to my YouTube channel while you're here and click that bell notification icon so that you get notifications whenever we go live. The Wake Up America show, which I can imagine is most of your first time seeing us this morning, broadcasts Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. We've got a great crew of people and a friendship support network here. We're all liberty lovers. And if you like freedom, then you probably like the show. And we'd love to have you come back another morning as well. I guess I'd like to move on to the topic that I brought you on here for, the question of China. Maybe we'll get to Conan the Barbarian here in just a little bit, John, but
we'll talk Conan another time.
We'll talk Conan another time. I think people have more pressing matters to discuss this morning. But these protests that are breaking out in China, people are comparing it to Tiananmen Square, which, on one hand is a good thing. We love to see the people of China rising up against their tyrannical communist masters over there. But the lesson of Tiananmen Square ultimately is that at the end of the day, the Chinese government is just going to roll tank.
Yeah, I mean that's what happened. What was it now? 30 years ago. There's certainly a risk of that happening. We know protests in China are rare, and they're rare because the Chinese Communist Party, doesn't tolerate them. They don't tolerate dissent or demonstrations of these kind. We're already seeing videos of that. Although we saw that in Western governments too, right? Like people just sitting there trying to record, observe, and being beaten up by security, police and things like that. I think what we're seeing here, like this is zero COVID fatigue, right? 3 years of this, the Chinese people have endured, and they've really endured it kind of like Americans in the first year, right? Where we go, okay, we're going to follow through and do some of these things. The difference is, politicians over here started to see how unpopular these policies were because the people saw how ineffective they were, for one. In China, it's been kind of more of a slow brew. I really think there's a lot of evidence what caused this was the World Cup. You had all these people that were watching the World Cup and they see people in the stands without masks, all celebrating, having fun. They're like, why are we still, our whole city's locked down. We can't do anything. We're miserable. And all these people, the rest of the people all around the world are gathering. I think that triggered something, just much like it did here when you had, celebrities that would go to the Super Bowl. They're all pro-mask, but at the Super Bowl, they're hanging out and having fun. I think, these authoritarian measures can't handle the truth. Like when you shine the light of truth on them, people see what a charade it is. and the Chinese people are doing, what I think is very admirable. And I hope this works to bring more freedom there. I hope China blinks. I hope they don't do what they did 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago, for a lot of different reasons. But obviously the humanitarian one first.
If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Jon Miltimore. He's the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. If this is your first time joining us in the chat and you see my friend Steffi down there, well, she's more than a friend. That's my beautiful, smoking hot, redheaded libertarian wife down there. And she's out there trying to gather support. If it's your first time watching us this morning and you like the program so far, do us a favor. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell notification icon and we'll be in your stream 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday Central Time. Jon, since it is such a big audience and we're so used to having more like 30 or 40 people watching us in the morning, not 120, 130, 140, would you like to just very briefly explain to us who FEE is, what FEE is and what your guys' mission are, so that hopefully you guys can get a little more attention at your great work down there?
Yeah, we're, the Foundation for Economic Education. We've been around since the 1940s. Started by a couple of libertarians who saw what the New Deal was. And the whole mission is to bring economics back into school, to educate people about economic liberty. And we do that on FEE.org in a lot of different ways. We have, article content, we have video content, and I encourage anybody interested in liberty to come check us out.
Yeah, that's at the Foundation for Economic Education, FEE.org. I took a master class on Austrian economics there about a decade or so ago, and definitely changed my life. And I learned a lot about the economic history of the 20th century, and I'm still learning a lot from them every single day when I read their website at FEE.org. Jon, anything else that you think that people should know before I let you go?
No, I just want to show my FEE sweet coffee cup. You can even buy those in the FEE store, I think. But yeah, I guess last thing, yeah, I'm on Substack now. People, you can probably find me, but it's JJ Milt. I'm writing at Substack pretty much every day, trying to grow that. But thanks for the invitation. It was fun talking to you, Austin, as always.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much for your time, Jon. We appreciate you very much, and we'll see you here very soon. All right.
All right, later.
There you go. What do you think of Jon Miltimore? All right. So as a favor to you all, I'm going to cut my commercials short. I'm going to go to commercial break here now, but I'll cut them short so that we can all stick around here together. We'll talk more about what I know you want to talk about, which is the Tim Pool, Kanye West, Nick Fuentes thing. We'll play the clip again, right? I'm going to go get that clip, get it ready. I'll be back in like 1 minute, right? So don't leave. Stick around. I'll be right back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
You exposed to hazardous materials while serving in the military and have an illness or condition as a result?
If so, you may be eligible for VA benefits and services.
Whether you need health care or want to file a disability compensation claim related to military exposures, VA is here to help.
Visit va.gov/military-exposures to learn more and apply today.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom at 7:47. You're watching the Wake Up America Show with Austin Petersen at wakeupAmericaShow.com. All right, well, we're back from commercials early because, well, everybody who's sitting here probably doesn't want to watch commercials. All 130 of you this morning. It's certainly exciting to see all the new names and faces who are joining us over there in the YouTube live stream. We're super grateful to have all of the new watchers and listeners. If this is your first time here and you like what you see so far, do me a favor, subscribe to my YouTube channel here that you're watching and hit that bell notification icon Patreon. It really helps us out. Also, happy holidays to you. We're grateful to have you here. All right, so let's just reconfigure. I know my buddy Camellia Peterson is joining us at 8. We were supposed to talk about Elon Musk and Twitter, and we will probably do that as well. But Camellia, you probably ought to get ready to talk about the not just Elon Musk, but to discuss the Tim Pool interview. So might want to brush up on that, or just watch the clip that I'm getting ready to play for you right now. This is the highlights from the interview last night that I think are the most important.
Yeah.
Or not. We're going to have a meltdown here right in front of 150 people.
Yeah. I think they've been extremely unfair to you.
Who was they, though? We can't say they as
corporate press. I'm not using I don't use the word as the way I guess you guys use. I'm talking
It is
about
them, though, isn't it? I mean, because because when you think about it, consider it. In 2018.
What do you mean it's not?
What do I mean? Like, okay, so how about?
And that's the key moment there. So Tim Pool is pushing back on Kanye's accusations against the Jews that are the ones who control the media. Tim Pool sees it as a corporate media problem, right, as an institutional problem, and Kanye is blaming it on a culture and a religion. Nick Fuentes wanted to do it as well. It would have been interesting to hear what Nick Fuentes said, because Fuentes was ready to go there, full ham against the Jews. Ham against the Jews. That is their kryptonite, I've heard. Ham. All right. It's okay. I'm married to a Jewish wife.
You leaving?
Are you afraid of the press?
Are you afraid of the press? Whoever said that? Whoever said, "Are you afraid of the press?" If that was Luke Rudkowski, I got to say, good for you, Luke. That was ballsy. Because, again, think about this. Kanye, bipolar or not, however you feel about him, not like him or love him or not, he's running for president of the United States. He is trying to become the leader of this country, right? He's trying to make decisions about life and death over you. And he can't stand up. He can't stand up to a little bit of pushback about his political views.
What I was fighting for was the IP, so my children could, I'm sorry, sometimes I think about 7 thoughts at one time, because anything I see, I come up with like 7 answers to it and then just choose what it is.
And Tim Pool.
Yeah, and I think that that's a little bit of the problem there, right? Kanye is not in his right mind, so it's harder to take him seriously, whether it's his views on the Jews or whether it's his views on politics or what have you. He's scatterbrained, and admittedly so.
Is discouraged from even having this conversation.
A lot of people were saying on the right specifically, don't platform them. And I said, well, I want to understand what they're thinking and why they're thinking it. They're involved in what may be the biggest news story of the past week, and we have an opportunity to sit down and
that was Mitchell Reeves says that the person who said that was Serge, the producer, who was awesome. Yes, Serge is awesome, and I think I like Serge the best over there. The couple of times that I've been over there, the first time I went on Timcast was Lydia, who I liked, but I met Serge the second time, and you know what? Let's give an applause to Serge. That was ballsy of Serge to say that. Good for you, Serge. It's hard to stand up to people in power. You got to understand, the reason why people like Nick Fuentes and Milo are there are to ride the coattails of Kanye West, who is a great man. But people like Serge, when you have to understand that I don't know if you've ever been around people like Kanye or others who are famous people, but I mean they have this kind of aura around them, like they cannot be questioned, and people are usually afraid of them. They're too afraid to ask them difficult questions. So you got to give it to my man Serge there. Again, give him another applause. Asking those kinds of questions. Saying something like that, what, are you afraid of the press, right? I think that's a ballsy move there, because you got to know that there's going to be people who are going to be like little Greta Thunberg.
How dare you?
How dare you? Wow, 192 people watching. Quite intimidating this morning. Definitely the biggest show that we've ever done right now. If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Petersen. The Wake Up America show is Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time, and we'd love to have you come back and join us for our regular program. The Cantina crew, who are my regular viewers and friends, would love to introduce yourself. Would love it if you introduce yourselves and become friends here, because we are a really tight-knit group and we'd love to make more friends. So please feel free to introduce yourself around. And for the guys out there, there's a lot of really cute girls in the chat as well. So introduce yourself to them.
But Ye was going to give insight as to why.
Oh, come on. For the love of God, will you please just
Bloodlines, like the documentary that Kyrie posted. And in general, America has been left ignorant and history has been changed. So when we start questioning things.
Ye went on to talk about the handlers being planted to control him.
Josh over in the live stream says it's sad to see all these bad actors swarming Kanye. Yeah, I agree. Hey, from Tim's, it was an interesting show last night, right? Says Dustin. Yes, glad to have you here. Thank you so much.
In the fashion world, where they use this
people.
plant named Gabby, who's obviously like some kind of CIA agent, knows nothing about fashion. This is a certain thing. When someone can't dress, you know that they're not like a fashion person.
And made some pretty
Now, he's going to make these accusations about these intelligence people that are surrounded by him. I believe that, right? I'm just enough of a conspiracy theorist to believe that our government puts plants around people in high positions of power in order to try and influence them, in order to protect government policy.
drastic analogies to how he was being controlled.
It was like American History X. Like my head was on the side of the curve, and the exact people that I called out kicked my head. We found out that my trainer was a MK Ultra Canadian intelligence.
He worked in the defense research and development.
They tried to medicate me. I was exhausted. They wrongly diagnosed me. And they when I asked them, how much lithium did you want to put me on exactly? It took them 4 days to answer because they were embarrassed about the amount, right? And I refused to take this, right? You understand that if I had taken the medication, I would not be here, and it would have been, he was deeply troubled. We miss him. We love his music, though.
Well, they would have Britney Spears too. Britney, when she went in, she was tired, she was exhausted, she was in a bad way, but 10 years of that medication wrecked her brain. You can
Pause it. Now, this is a really important point. I think that this deserves more attention because, honestly, I think that the mental illness problem is really the heart of this matter with Kanye. Because, Milo, whether he's making a good point here. Nick Fuentes, I don't even know why he's there. I don't think he's important to this conversation, but he's there, so he's a part of this conversation. But the drugs that they want to load Kanye up with, I believe him when he says that they wanted to load him up with so much lithium that basically they would turn him into an automaton, and they could control and manipulate him, put him in a closet, and he'll shut up and he won't say the heinous things that he's saying, and maybe that's true, but you know what? It's just speech, right? It doesn't actually hurt anyone, and I don't believe the leftist media when they come out there and say that they're normalizing anti-Semitism. No, what we're trying to do is to try and ensure that someone who is struggling with bipolar disorder is not drugged up and put in a closet. If he's not actually physically harming someone, then you can take it, okay? You can take it, him saying these horrible, awful things that people like Tim Pool disagree with, people like me disagree with, and most normal, rational people disagree with a lot of the crazy things that Kanye West is saying. But he should be allowed to say them. That's what freedom means. Can I get applause on that one? Yeah. All 240 people who are watching right now? Yeah, let's continue.
You see, there's not much of
Britney Spears left. Yeah. And, again,
what has happened? The Jewish people say it's the Holocaust, this happened, and you can't say anything about it. We can't take their pain away. No one's going to denounce the fact that they tried to lock me up.
And no, there's no world where you can compare being a Holocaust victim to being prosecuted for tax evasion.
This is this guy who cut this clip, Decoy Voice. I'm going to pause with you there and make a point that I made again earlier for all the people who just joined us. So in terms of scale, tax evasion, prosecution versus the Holocaust is worse, yes. But can I compare them? Yes. Oppressive governments who are prosecuting people for tax evasion is a crime against humanity. Is the Holocaust a crime against humanity? Yes. Was the Holocaust a crime against humanity? Yes. Is the ongoing prosecution of people for not paying taxes a crime against humanity as well? Yes. In that way, they are comparable. Let's continue.
So Tim Pool does a pretty great job on calling Ye out.
I think the issue is, one way to put it, is you're expounding upon a localization issue that you've witnessed, right? Let me clarify. There are a handful of people that you see are Jewish in a certain place, and then you associate Judaism with the power, whereas I view that as not relevant to it. Like,
Good point.
You're substantially more powerful than I am, but I don't view what you're doing as an issue of black people.
Yeah, but have you ever heard?
VJ Wax Mask over in the live chat says Fetterman versus Ye going to be fire.
The term the black vote?
But Ye isn't hearing it.
If you start bringing this up, you're going to ask my opinion on it. I'm going to disagree with you.
I didn't ask your opinion on it. You jumped into it.
But I don't care.
Okay, Kanye had a good point there. He didn't ask his opinion about it. That's true. But it is Tim's show. So.
Care about your opinion. I like your opinion on how we win an election.
As he threatened to walk off multiple times.
Like, I'm literally going to walk the F off the show if I'm sitting up here having...
Which he did, and since we've got 261 people, the biggest live stream we've ever done, I do have to plug every once in a while and say, please, if you like the show, what you're seeing this so far this morning, please like the stream and subscribe to the AP for Liberty show. The Wake Up America show is Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central. Hit that bell notification icon so that you can get more great live streams in the morning like this.
Talk about, you can't say that it was
like you're extrapolating.
I'm going to order with the last of my money that's available in a different account. I'm going to order a PJ before I sit and have another Lex Friedman setup conversation.
Okay, so I thought he meant, like, first thing when somebody says PJs, I think, pajamas, but that's because out of pajamas versus private jet, that's the only thing that I could afford. So I'm sorry, let's continue.
Until he finally did.
What do you mean it's not?
What do I mean? Like, okay, so how about, are you leaving?
Yeah, he's leaving.
Are you afraid of the press?
Are you afraid of the press?
He's
Serge, give Serge.
And Tim calls out Ye's fiasco for what it is.
What do I even do? Other than ask him, please elaborate on this. Are you referring to individuals, or are you quite literally blaming an entire group of people for the fact that powerful individuals are causing you harm? The moment we got into the point of any kind of adversarial questioning, they were done and they walked out.
Yeah.
They didn't have to have their ideas challenged, but they got the PR.
Yeah, well, that's true. Good point there. I've got to go. I'm going to keep my commercial break. Again, I'm going to cut it short. All right, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go to my commercial break, but I'm not going to let the commercials play for very long. I'm going to go get Camellia Peterson, who's not related to me, a lovely lady, and she's going to join us on the program, and she's going to react to this. All right, we'll keep on the topic because I know that's why you're here. So let me go get her. I'll be right back. Don't leave, okay? Stick around. Introduce yourself to all the friends who are there. We'll be right back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
My name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender. I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's alive. but as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans.
Do you have any real-world experience?
It's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. It's 8:03. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Grateful to have you here, all hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you. We're not used to that. Joining me now in studio is my good friend, we're not related though, Camellia Peterson, who's on the video call right now. Good morning, Camellia. How are you today?
Good morning. Doing well, thank you.
Yes. Well, I guess you probably weren't prepared to talk about the Kanye West Tim Pool interview this morning. I brought you on because we were going to talk about Elon Musk going to war with Apple. And while that is a big story, I think the 250 people who are with us right now would probably love to hear your thoughts on what happened last night. Did you get a chance to see any of that?
Yeah, I've been watching and listening, this morning, and heard the clip and the pieces that you've been playing for sure.
Okay, so your thoughts on Kanye West storming out of the Tim Pool interview last night?
Well, I agree. I thought Quest made a really great point about, in business, you could do that. That's the power move. But in politics, that's the weak move, because it shows that you're not able to cut it. You can't handle it. You can't handle the tough questions, and certainly not if you're going to, run for president, which that was a total power move, I think, to ask Donald Trump to be his vice president. But
right. But I think probably the deeper root of this story is the fact that it looks as if Kanye is being taken advantage of by these two gentlemen who are riding his coattails. Would you agree?
Sure. I mean, it is pretty amazing. And I guess, because of some of the things that he's been thinking and the beliefs that he now has, and they align with those, it'd be interesting to know if they influenced that, if they were around before he started kind of really forming those opinions, or, if it was the other way around.
Oh, good point there. Yeah, I guess I didn't think about that. I mean, you have to wonder how long Nick Fuentes has been hanging on, because, if Kanye was espousing those views on Jews before Nick Fuentes got there, or if it was kind of like, bugs being attracted to a bug light. You know what I mean? Kanye is saying all of these things, and then all of a sudden Fuentes is reaching out to him and all that. But, Milo is obviously looking for a return to grace. Milo was, before you got involved with politics, Milo was huge, and his career, faded from grace when, right before what was supposed to be his crowning achievement, which was to headline as a speaker at CPAC a number of years ago, until some comments came out about him and a relationship that that he had while he was a young man with a Catholic priest who abused him. And then he told a story about, essentially justifying those kinds of relationships, which, to an extent is what caused his fall from grace. But with Kanye, I think that, the part about where he's talking about what happened to Britney Spears and her being loaded up with all those drugs for years. I mean, you've seen what's going on with Britney. I mean, I can imagine that a lot of that, drugging up these celebrities and things when they say things that imagine how many celebrities might be getting drugged up and told to shut up because they're not espousing anti-Semitic views. They might just be espousing a view that's not leftist.
Sure. And we've talked about this before, the line between, genius and insanity is very thin. And it's, and I think this is also, you see this more with people who are really creative. And so the thing is I worked in mental health, did case management with adults with mental illness for several years. And there is just, it's all a trade-off. And medical advancements in mental health are just very, very slow to come. There's not a whole lot that has changed in terms of how we treat mental illness, and psychotropic medications are terrible. I would, watch people, and it's kind of a guessing game. How much do you give them? What dosages? What combination of things do you put together that's going to work for this person and their specific problems? And I saw people who had bipolar disorder, and they get into that manic phase of the illness, and they feel better, and they feel good, and they think, oh, I can stop taking my medications, because those medications make you feel awful. They make you feel dull and blunted, like they slow your thinking down, because Kanye is probably in having a manic episode, and when he talks about thinking about more than one thing at once, those are racing thoughts, and that's a really common symptom with bipolar disorder. So it just is a real struggle, and the medications are terrible, and there's no good answer, either way. But yes, these people are doping them up for profit, and that's terrible.
Absolutely. Good. That's the quote of the morning, I would say, doping for profit. You can send a text message to the show this morning at 573-319-1586. One of our listeners did just that and said, Austin, your views going through the roof. I remember when they were less than 30. I don't know if you remember a month ago talking about getting coffee and giving me some ways to get into working on the liberty freedom movement. I do, and I will try and remember to message you after the show so that we can grab coffee and talk about getting you into the liberty movement. If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show for the first time today, which hundreds and hundreds of you are doing, please like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell notification icon. The Wake Up America show broadcasts every morning from Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time for 2 hours. It's a great way to start your day, get a little bit of coffee, hang out with me and Camellia. Camellia is on every Tuesday and Thursday, for usually from 8 a.m. to like 8:30ish, and it's a great show. And if you like liberty and freedom of speech, then this is the place for you. You can text the show again, 573-319-1586. Nirina LMD, she's disagreeing with you over in the live stream. She says, is this based on our medical opinion? There are people who are helped by modern psychiatry. I don't know. Are you sort of opposed to modern psychiatry? Because I got to say, I think I actually kind of am opposed to modern psychiatry. I think it does help some people, but I kind of agree with the Scientologists in a way that I think we way over medicate people, in my view, especially young people.
Sure, and I think that there are a lot of factors, and I'm not dismissing modern psychiatry, but I do think in both psychiatry and in psychology, there's a lot of junk science. There's no way about that. There is, and the thing is that yes, these medications, psychotropic medications, help a lot of people function in ways they could not function before and actually be able to interact with people. But it's undeniable that the side effects are very often almost as bad as the illness itself. I was just listening to a podcast the other day with Huberman, I can't remember his name, he's a scientist, but he had a psychiatrist on who was talking about this issue of the medications and his own struggles with some of those things and how the medications affected him. And then he started talking about how diet affected it. And in his research in doing this, he started putting people on, well, he didn't start, he did it to himself first. And then when he had someone who was interested, he started working his way into doing studies where he put people on a keto diet. And a lot of the symptoms that came with mental illness, including schizophrenia, really started to greatly reduce, and people were actually able to function and have a semi-normal life. It doesn't work for every person, though, and that is the problem when you're dealing with, the brain and mental illness, is that there's so much that they don't know, and sometimes it's trial and error.
It's kind of amazing how much diet really does impact your health and your mental health. Because, for example, I know Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela Petersen. She had all kinds of rashes. She had an autoimmune disorder, and she says that she was helped by going on the carnivore diet. Right? She was eating too much bread and gluten. Certainly, there are people who have negative, celiac disease, right? Who have negative impacts from that. But one has to wonder, if Kanye wouldn't be aided by less lithium and just more healthy eating. Because, from what I understand, I was actually reading about what happened last night at the interview backstage, and it didn't sound like they were eating all that healthy. Apparently, Kanye walked out with a big bag of cookies that wasn't helping. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen, you're listening to Camellia Peterson, who spells her last name S-O-N, and my last name is spelled S-E-N. So no, we are not related. Although she is single and available to mingle. So definitely hit her up in her DMs. programs. You can follow Camellia on Twitter at Rare Camellia. So you see her spelling of her name down there so that you can do that. Camellia, can we talk about like the sort of the pickle that Tim was in the sense that, you know, his job is to get those big interviews, right? There are people who said, oh, well, you shouldn't give platform to these ideas. And maybe having Milo and Nick Fuentes on was really, you know, pointless and probably didn't help anything. But, you know, Tim's job was to get that interview. And in one sense, you know, he doesn't really want to talk about the anti-Semitic stuff because I don't really think I know that a lot of people think it's the story, but the real story isn't the real story, the meeting with Donald Trump.
Well, sure. It's the one thing that nobody really knows anything about because there was no press in that meeting. And, you know, so it's basically Trump's word against, you know, Kanye and Fuentes and Milo. And so, yeah, that's the real story. And I think that really this issue with all of his comments about the Jews has been it's just been beat to death. We've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. And he clearly has some, you know, crazy thoughts about that. But it's also one of those topics that's very taboo, you know, culturally. You know, we have seemed to, as a group, reverence the Jews as a group. And I don't think we should do that for any group.
Agreed. Agreed. Somebody says to learn who rules over you, simply find out who you're not allowed to criticize. It's actually funny because my Jewish mother-in-law was visiting here for Thanksgiving, and we were criticizing the Jews, right? Because and the thing is that they're not monolithic, right? And that's kind of the mistake that people make. It was the same for what were we talking about? Not Italian people, not Black people, but the group of people, the extremely diverse group of people that sometimes are confused for being monolithic. Was it Italians? I can't remember. It was like some discussion that we were having last week about an ethnic group, but it's like there's so many different types of ethnic groups. And when it comes to Jews, there's Ashkenazi and then there's Middle Eastern Sephardic, right? So I mean, are you talking about Israeli Jews? Are you talking about Zionist Jews? Are you talking about atheist Jews? Are you talking about secular Jews? Are you talking about libertarian Jews? Are you talking about communist Jews? Right? And it's the same way. And I know that this is going to probably lose all 200 people who are 50 people who are watching right now, but it's kind of the same way with transgender people, right? When you're an individualist and you look at people as individuals, like all transgenders are not the same, right? You've got your leftist groomer, communist, minor attracted person transgenders who are obviously abhorrent and are people that we have to keep an eye on who are dangerous. And then you've got your Sarah Higdons, your right-wing libertarian Sarah Higdons. I mean, honestly, Camellia, one of the most triggered times that I've ever seen conservatives and right-wingers and people get triggered is when I went on Tim Pool's show and talked about gay marriage representing conservative values, that gay marriage was showing that the homosexuals were adopting conservative values. And I mean, they lost their, they lost their, trying not to get demonetized on this huge stream.
Well, people think about that and they are immediately offended because they are all they see is the gay marriage issue. But it is true in many ways because when you used to think about how the right and the Christian circles would think about gay people, it was inextricably linked with promiscuous behavior. And so the fact that we are talking about stable relationships, yeah, I mean, there's something to that is a value that is, that you find in marriage. So you're not necessarily wrong.
Yeah, no kidding. A.N. Henry says, does this guy think he has a room of leftists in here? We're all going to leave if you bring up trans. Know your audience, dude. No, I think that some of you might get triggered by what I said about gay marriage resembling conservatism. And I said that the other day on Twitter as well, that, most of my gay friends are conservatives. And because conservatives have a hard time accepting that conservatism is about more than hating gays. It's also about an economic viewpoint, right? So independent on your views of culture or society are your views on economics, and free market economics is a part of the conservative tradition. Not all conservatives adhere to that. Many conservatives eschew free market economics, but you can't deny that when you say fiscally conservative, people consider that to be a limited government free market point of view in general. So can we stereotype to a certain extent? Yes, I think we can. I think certain stereotypes exist for a reason, but you make mistakes when you speak in broad swaths of culture. I don't know if you saw, did you see Jon Stewart's comments about what Kanye was saying? Did you happen to see an interview that he did recently? So this was really good. Jon Stewart was talking about, why Kanye should be allowed to voice his views and his opinions. And he was saying that he thought that, you shouldn't try and silence him because in essence, you're sort of like creating that self-fulfilling prophecy. You're just kind of proving what Kanye was saying there. But Stewart was also saying that, we need to demystify Jews in Hollywood. We need to demystify Jews in banks. And when you try and silence something and you try and cover things up, you create this sort of mystifying, you create this mystification process that people start to wonder and they start to conspiracy theorize, right? And Jon Stewart says that we need to demystify Jews in Hollywood. We need to talk about that more openly, and having a more open conversation demystifies it. And I think, destigmatizes it as well. What do you think?
No, I think that's absolutely correct. And I think that we like to think that all cultures are equal in terms of what people can do or not do, and the reality is that part of a culture is sometimes a work ethic and your approach to that. And so I think that is a factor here, and it's not necessarily because they're the Jews and they have some secret mystical power that enables them to make gobs of money and rule the world. I think that there are just a lot of values that are inherent in their culture that have made it possible for them to be successful because they're very hard workers. They make good decisions.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, absolutely. I mean, Israel is number 2 behind the United States in terms of patents and inventions and things. And I mean, I think that in large part, the reason for the Jewish success story has a lot to do with their historical oppression and like knowing that in order for them to survive, that they've had to innovate and that they've had to be prosperous in order to protect themselves. I think that makes perfect sense. But again, that is a demystification process that we need to go through. And unfortunately, the ADL, right, the leftist Jews, right, the Marxist Jews, give them all a bad name by going out there and trying to suppress their opinions. I would call them, professional victims. Essentially, right? These are people who are paid to go out there and be victims, right? They run these nonprofits like the ADL and others, the Jewish Defense League. They go out there and they are getting paid by their donors to go out there and to find enemies. And here's the thing, if you're getting paid to find enemies, you're going to find enemies. If you look for evil, you will always find it, especially when you're paid very well to find it. So a lot of the problems that we have in politics is professional victims, not just on the Jewish side of things, but just in general. I mean, the NAACP, the ACLU, right? Professional victims. Am I right?
Right. And, when we talk about this victim mentality, and that's something that we see more and more, is probably one of the greatest threats to our children coming up, is they're being raised in this culture of a victim mentality and that you're oppressed by everybody else. And when you do that, they don't think about how to innovate and that they can do anything and that the possibilities are endless. And the more we are oppressing people's ideas, the less freedom they have, the fewer liberties they have, and free people innovate. And so that's why America has been so successful, because free people innovate.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Petersen, the host of the program, and I'm joined by my friend Camellia Peterson, who joins us every Tuesday and Thursday on the program. If this is your first time watching us, it looks like we got put into YouTube's recommended channel, which is why we got so many people here this morning. Glad to have you here. We'd love to have you come back and join us another morning. So why don't you like and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification icon so that we can see your face again. Please introduce yourself. We do love free speech, even if your views happen to share those of Nick Fuentes, we can challenge those ideas, and we'd love to hear from you. All that I ask is that you just be respectful to the other people in the chat who are my friends. You can send us a text message this morning at 573-319-1586. Sunshine Cool Water says all groups and classes of people should be up for ridicule, praise, and criticism as long as there is no threat and or physical violence involved. Completely agree. Jonathan Edinger says self-reliance is too often portrayed as greed and selfishness, telling that it's wrong to want to survive. Good point there, wouldn't you say?
Yes, for sure. And when you say that all points of view are welcome, like we like to argue. I mean, debate, but
we like to debate. Absolutely,
it sharpens us.
Absolutely true. I come from I'm a member of the Republican Party, but I'm a philosophical libertarian. I ran for president of the United States as a member of the Libertarian Party in 2016, joined the Republicans in 2017, and I've been a member of the party as such. But I really classify myself as much more independent-minded because even a lot of libertarians don't like me. I mean, a lot of libertarians don't like a lot of libertarians anyway. But over here, I would say, if anything, how would I define like people like Camellia and people like myself and the type of crowd that I run with? We really are just independent-minded free thinkers, right? We don't really run with much of a crowd other than with each other. But the fact is that you can't really nail a label on us just because there are a lot of things that we don't agree, even with many libertarians on, like heroin to 5-year-olds, if you will. That's something that I get booed for, but inside joke. You can send us a text this morning at 573-319-1586. Hikaru, who's joining us today for the first time, says, it's more than just self-reliance. It's also absolute distrust of perceived outsiders, I think, especially from the ADL, that somehow any of us could wake up and be the next Fuhrer. I mean, probably, right? I mean, if you think about it, the Holocaust was a terrible disaster, but I mean, the ADL, I mean, they're fundraising off of it. I mean, who's really worse in some sense is like the people, who actually suffer, people who actually suffer from this grievance. I mean, they have a right to be upset about it. But then, do they have a right to go out and hire people to, support them? Yeah, for sure. But I mean, at some point, it's kind of like, I don't know. There's an episode of The Sopranos where Tony Soprano is talking to his nephew, where his nephew like murdered his own like fiance in order to protect the mob, and he kept bringing it up whenever he needed to get out of something. He's like, "How long are you going to skid on that?" Right? It's kind of like at some point, it's kind of like we need to. I'm not saying move on. We need to learn about it. We need to teach about it. But it's like if every single time everything is being compared to the Holocaust, I think it denigrates the Holocaust. Wouldn't you agree?
Sure. I think it diminishes its impact. And we talk about this when we talk about the way we use language and words like, commie and communism and everything is fascist. And, we water down the impact and the true meaning of those horrible things when we just use them for everything. And all of a sudden, you're getting on the train for everything. If you don't say something about something or you don't act in the right way, well, you might as well just get on the train. We go overboard. That's kind of human tendency. We go overboard with everything.
Yeah, for sure. Camellia, I've monopolized a lot of your time this morning. Is there anything else that you think that people should know before I let you go?
Well, no, I would only say this. I think that, a lot of what has been said here today has been great as far as Kanye. And I think, he is totally weak that he walked out. And we will talk about Elon Musk another day.
We'll have to talk about Elon Musk another day. Camellia, thank you very much for your time today. Let's give her a round of applause, would you say? Did you like Camellia? You can follow her on Twitter at @RareCamellia. On Twitter. So follow her there at Rare Camellia. We're certainly grateful to her. All right. So I'm going to just take a little break because my voice is tired. I'm going to be back in like 1 minute. Don't go away. 230 people over there on YouTube. When we come back, I'll play the clip again from Timcast for all the people who haven't seen it, who are just tuning in. I'll play it again. We'll react. We'll continue to discuss it. I know this is what you want to discuss this morning, so we're going to stay on topic when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that. Good morning. It's 8:27. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen at wakeupAmericaShow.com. For those of you who are my regulars, you're like, hey, look at this. Well, these commercials are lasting like 30 seconds. Well, yeah, that's what happens when you've got so many ding-dang people watching you this morning. And people like my good buddy, new buddy, Richard Brodowski, who gave us $10 on the Super Chat. Well, I can afford to go away from the commercial break and to talk about this this topic. You can send us a text 573-319-1583. That's 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from you on this program this morning. If you want to have your text message read on the stream, again, you can send us a text 573-319-1586. I also try and read the super chats as well. Richard says, didn't know you had a YouTube channel, even though I follow you on Facebook and IG. Thanks, algorithm. Totally agree with you. When everyone is Hitler, it lessens who Hitler actually was. Great point, Richard. Yes. It's like calling people racist, right? You're like, oh, there's a racist, you're a bigot, you're a homophobe, you're a misogynist, right? And honestly, I think that the left has contributed to the rise of anti-Semitism and bigotry and hatred in a way, because people are doing it now. They're being ironic. I know this is going to sound kind of weird, but I actually think that there are a lot of people who are being Nazis online ironically. When I say ironically, meaning, can you imagine being a Nazi ironically? But as a Nazi to troll, right? So essentially what they're doing is they're acting in such a way because, the left has been calling everyone Nazi, that, anyone to the right of Joseph Stalin, a Nazi for the last 5, 6, 7 years, right? And the irony too in that is, not just being an ironic Nazi, but the irony too there is that calling people a Nazi is one thing, right? But you have people who are, I lost my train of thought there. I'm pulling a Kanye. But the irony in calling people a Nazi and all the stuff is that you have people acting like, Nazis online. You're going to have people saying anti-Semitic things online just to troll them, right? You're going to have people, dabbling in, bigotry because, it's going to be the thing against the establishment, because there's always going to be, whenever there's an establishment, there's always going to be a counter revolution to that establishment, right? And the counter revolution to the establishment is going to be whatever the establishment is not, right? So if the establishment pushes too hard, they're going to make people into the thing that they did not want to, that they claim they don't want to be. Anyways, it's a little confusing, and I'm sorry about that. It's been a pretty wild show with so many people watching this morning. You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. Stephanie, my beautiful smoking hot redheaded wife over there, says, we overuse so many terms nowadays, like gaslighting, it loses its meaning. It certainly does. Absolutely. Gaslighting is the word of the year, actually. That was going to be one of my topics today until this all blew everything up. Gaslighting apparently is the word of the year. I pulled this from the Wall Street Journal. Searches for the word rose significantly from a year earlier, as it was heard everywhere from Capitol Hill to reality TV. Merriam-Webster, the dictionaries, their word of the year for 2022 was so widely used, it's been uttered by politicians, TV talking heads, and even the bickering contestants of a reality dating show, Bachelor in Paradise, and the word is gaslighting, which, let's define it, because of course, when it's overused, people are going to use it incorrectly. The word is defined as the act or practice of grossly misleading someone, especially for one's own advantage. the meaning of it has evolved over the years, but the original definition was the psychological manipulation of a person, usually over an extended period of time, that causes the victim to question the validity of their own thoughts. And it came from the 1938 play Gaslight and the films that came after it. The plot involves a husband who tries to make his wife believe she's going insane by telling her that the gaslights in the house aren't dimming, even though they are. But now it's kind of used as a fancy way of saying lying. And you're losing a little bit of the subtlety in the original meaning of the word. But of course, that's the way that the language works. People adopt it and the word simply takes on its own life. Some other words that drew high interest this year were Omicron, which saw a spike in searches in January. Queen Consort jumped in September after Britain's Queen Elizabeth II died, and King Charles III's wife, Camilla, was given the title. Popular word games sent people the dictionary as well. Searches for loamy, Loamy, which I probably could have gotten right if I'd thought about it. That describes a type of soil. It surged in August when it was one of the answers for Quordle, which is a spin-off of the viral Wordle game. So yeah, word of the year this year, gaslighting. You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. If this is your first time watching the Wake Up America show, glad to have you here. You can tune in to the show Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central, and we'd certainly be glad to have you back. So make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. We'd be glad to have you here. Somebody just texted in and says, AP, I didn't know you had your own live stream. Isn't this awesome? Thanks, Kanye's childish behavior for my discovery. Glad to add you to my daily library. RCGH, not exactly who that is. One listener texted in and says, Ye said nothing wrong. Not all Jews can be lumped in, but a vast majority of media and banks and entertainment is Jewish owned. It's not anti-Semitic to say so. To blame them all for everything may be, but to notice simple facts is not. See, and that's kind of what Jon Stewart was saying when he was talking about, and I wonder if I can find this clip. Let me see if I can search it up for you, because I do think it is worth our time to play this of Jon Stewart talking to Colbert about anti-Semitism and sort of demystifying it. Let me see if I can find this video for you, because I'd love to be able to show you. Ah, yes, here it is. I found it. Jon Stewart talking about, oh, that's not the clip, saying everyone knows that Palestinian rights, anti-Semitism, Israel bully tactics, anti-Semitism. Oh, come on now. Jon Stewart talked about Dave Chappelle's Oh, he was talking about Dave Chappelle, the accusations of anti-Semitism that were okay, so I found the clip. Let's see if, hopefully this will be what I'm talking about here, the anti-Semitism.
What do you imagine a response is to
How about I pause that and then bring you over to my Twitter channel so you guys can see the Twitter weirdness. Boom. I'm doing this all on the fly here live, ladies and gents, so hopefully this is will be to your liking. Let's go out of studio mode so you can see what I'm talking about here. We'll get rid of Kanye for just a moment. We'll see what Jon Stewart was saying here. What he was talking about accusations against Dave Chappelle, because Dave Chappelle was supporting Kanye's free speech. Take a listen.
Something, if people perceive anti-Semitism in what Kyrie Irving posts, or what Kanye says, or what Dave said on Saturday night, what do you think a good response would be?
I think just reflexively naming things anti-Semitism is as reductive as some of the things that they might be saying. It immediately shuts down a conversation.
Exactly. Great point there. Jon Stewart is saying that just reflexively naming things as anti-Semitism is very reductive. Right. Exactly. Just like calling things bigoted or misogynist or homophobe. Take a listen.
You know, Dave said something in the SNL monologue that I thought was instructive as well, which he says it shouldn't be this hard to talk about things. And that is what we're talking about. Look, I can't pretend that there aren't a ton of people in this country and this world who believe that the Jews have an unreasonable amount of control over the systems, and they wield it as puppet masters. I'm called anti-Semitic because I'm against Israel's treatment of Palestinians. I'm called other things from other people based on other opinions that I have. But those shut down debate. If we don't have the wherewithal to meet each other with what's reality, then how do we move forward?
What do you imagine a response is to something if people perceive anti-Semitism?
See, that is such a good point there that Jon Stewart made, and I think that is absolutely key, right? And, you know, Jon Stewart has not really been on the ball lately, but I think that he makes a good point there as well. What do you think? I got to say, give him some credit for that. Big time, big time. All right, now let's go away from our Chrome here and let's go back to our Kanye view here. Let's see if we can get this clip and play it up for those who are just tuning into the show this morning. These are what I believe to be the most important parts of the clip. It's from another influencer last night who managed to cut this for me. Please follow his YouTube channel when you see it pop up in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen.
Yeah. I think they've been extremely unfair to you.
Who is they though?
Who is they?
We can't say who they is.
Corporate
Can we?
press. I'm not using the. I don't use the word as the way I guess you guys use. I'm talking.
It is
about
them though, isn't it? I mean, because because when you think about it, consider it. In 2018.
What do you mean it's not?
What do I mean? Like, okay, so how about? You leaving?
What do you mean it's not? See, the Kanye softer than baby poop there gets pushed back on his views, and which I think Tim Pool rightfully did, saying, "What do you mean? What do you mean it's not? Oh, you're not going to agree with me that it's the Jews? Well, no, he doesn't have to agree with you, Kanye. He's allowed to disagree with you. It is his show."
Are you afraid of the press?
Oh, see now that moment. Now I got to go back to that because that's my buddy Serge there, the new producer who took over for Sour Patch Lids, or Lydia Lederman, is a guy by the name of Serge. I think it's spelled Serge. Took over that role as producer. Says, "Are you afraid of the press?" as Kanye is leaving. And you know what? Let's give him a round of applause there. How about a like on the screen for my buddy Serge? That takes guts, because you know what? These people, they have an aura around them of power. When you're that rich and you're that famous, like it's hard to question people who are in power, who are in authority. You know, I remember doing a press scrum one time, chasing down Jon Bolton when he was leaving Fox News, and everybody was trying to get around him, and I was just like elbowing people to get out of the way so I could get in there and start questioning him about his, role as a neocon warmonger. It takes guts.
Okay, so how about? You leaving?
Yeah.
Are you afraid of the press?
Are you afraid of the press? Oh, boom! Damn! He's gonna suffer a little
emotional damage
from that one, Serge.
He's gone.
What I was fighting for was the IP, so my children could, I'm sorry, just sometimes I think about 7 thoughts at one time, because anything I see, I come up with like 7 answers to it and then just choose what it is. But
somebody pause here for just a moment. I want to go over to the live stream comments. That's a logical fallacy this morning. Says Lex Friedman let him talk. He explains himself. Ye isn't really anti-Semitic. I like how he handled it. He needs to shut up sometime. I need to watch that Lex Friedman interview, because apparently the Lex Friedman interview was much better. But I do agree with people who are criticizing Tim Pool, saying that he should have just let him talk. See, unfortunately, if you have Fuentes on there and Milo, it becomes a bit of a sideshow, even though, it's all a sideshow to an extent. But when it comes to how Tim handled this interview, he was in a difficult position. He had to make a decision about, was he going to push back when Kanye was talking about the Jewish question, or was he going to, keep him on track to talk about the real news story he wanted to get, which we all really needed to hear about, which was that meeting that he had with Donald Trump. That was the real news there. And I think that Tim Pool definitely, did the right thing in pushing back when the conversation didn't go the way it was supposed to. But, more expertly guiding it back. I got to tell you, if you're not an interviewer, it's not easy sometimes when somebody wants to do that. And quite clearly, you'll see this is what Kanye is saying.
Tim Pool was discouraged from even having this conversation.
A lot of people were saying on the right, specifically, don't platform them. And I said, well, I want to understand what they're thinking and why they're thinking it. They're involved in what may be the biggest news story of the past week, and we have an opportunity to sit down and talk about it.
But Ye was going to give insight as to why he's been saying what he has been recently.
There's different beliefs about our bloodlines, like the documentary that Kyrie posted. And in general, America has been left ignorant and history has been changed. So when we start questioning things,
Ye went on to talk about the handlers being planted to control him.
From the fashion world, where they use this plant named Gabby, who's obviously like some kind of CIA agent, knows nothing about fashion. This is a certain thing. When someone can't dress, you know that they're not like a fashion person.
And see, I think that probably is one of the least crazy things that he said, even though it might sound crazy. I actually do believe that our government uses intelligence agents, places them near people who are powerful in order to influence them as official government policy. The deep state, call them what you will, but I believe that things like that happen.
Made some pretty drastic analogies to how he was being controlled.
Just like I think Ray Epps is a Fed.
It was like American History X. Like my head was on the side of the curve, and the exact people that I called out kicked my head. We found out that my trainer.
Well, why was? If you're saying things like that about Jews, why would you be surprised that with your head on the curve that they would be the ones who would kick you? I mean, duh.
There was a MK Ultra Canadian intelligence.
He worked in the defense research and development.
They tried to medicate me. I was exhausted. They wrongly diagnosed me. And they when I asked them, how much lithium did you want to put me on exactly? It took them 4 days to answer because they were embarrassed about the amount, right? And I refused to take this, right? You understand?
See, I understand, right? I do understand. And nobody but his doctor knows what Kanye really should be on. But if they're loading him up with lithium, and my wife, Stephanie, who's a therapist, was in here earlier talking about how there are alternatives to that very powerful drug that apparently turns you into a zombie. And, Milo's going to make a point about this as well here in just a moment about what happened to Britney Spears. I think this is really what's going on here, is that Kanye is being taken advantage of. Kanye is being used and abused by people who do not have the guts to tell him to his face, hey, Kanye, you need some help, bud. You need to get somebody the people who love you. I don't know who loves Kanye. I don't know who really cares about Kanye. I know he's got kids, and I know, his ex-wife obviously divorced him for, what reasons, we don't know. We're not necessarily privy to. Maybe it's because of things like this. Actually, Kim Kardashian has kind of earned some points with me the other day when she was coming out against that Balenciaga campaign that showed the, little girls with the teddy bear with all the weird, gross stuff. Anyways, let's continue.
But if I had taken the medication, I would not be here, and it would have been, he was deeply troubled. We miss him. We love his music, though.
Well, they would have Britney Spears too. Britney, when she went in, she was tired, she was exhausted, she was in a bad way, but 10 years of that medication wrecked her brain. You can see it now. You can see there's not much of her left.
Yes, absolutely. See, free Britney, absolutely. Does Britney need to be free to be able to be who she wants to be? Sure. Is it her right to post these nude photographs on Instagram like she does? Yes. Is it what's best for her? Probably not. And so, when it comes to Kanye or when it comes to Britney, who loves them? Right. That is the thing. And it's it's that question of wanting power and wanting fame and all of that. It's if I ever get, famous one day, real famous, or I ever get real rich, I think I will be okay with it, just because, what? Thankfully, it didn't happen to me when I was young. And thankfully, I have people who love me, and I kept those people around me. And these are people who will take care of me and ensure that I'm safe and ensure that I get help if I need help. And that's the thing, boy. When you're placed in those situations, it's kind of it's the sword of Damocles. If you don't know the story, the sword of Damocles is a mythical story about a man who wanted to be the king, and the king said, okay, you can be the king for a day. And for an entire day, this man had to walk around with a sword hanging over his head. For any decision that he made, the potential was for the sword to come down and whack him and to kill him, because that is what it means to have power. There's an Abraham Lincoln quote that's gone around for years that I actually found out recently was a fake quote, but it's if you want to test a man's character, give him power, right? If you want to test a man's strength, give him adversity. But if you want to test his strength, give him power. Test his character, give him power. It's not actually an Abraham Lincoln quote. I was wrong about that. I hope I hadn't posted it years ago, but maybe I did or something like that. It's a fake quote. But frankly, I think that is true. And unfortunately, not everybody is up to snuff to be able to handle that. And you know what? It's not even necessarily about you. It's about the people that you surround yourself with. And I honestly think that this brings us up to the question of Donald Trump, which we haven't really discussed too much this morning, because one of the things that I think even Trump's supporters would agree with is that Donald Trump surrounded himself with people who were yes men, and he surrounded himself with people who were not good for him. Right. And that is a question of leadership, the people that you surround yourself with. Because if you're constantly getting stabbed in the back, right, if you're Julius Caesar, you should have seen a long time ago. You should have seen Brutus coming. Right. You should have seen this betrayal coming and not put yourself in a situation where you would get stabbed in the back. So it was a mistake for Caesar to do it. Yes, the people who are committing the acts of betrayal are bad people too. But the mark of a true, good, strong leader is going to be like Cincinnatus. Somebody like, George Washington, who surrounds himself with the best leadership and is able to retire peacefully from power without having to deal with the sorts of betrayal that he has to deal with. George Washington actually had to deal with a coup, and he went. There's a great story, actually. You should read about it. I'm not sure if I can find the story myself. George Washington coup. I'm sorry. I'm not like Joe Rogan, and I can just tell Jamie to look something up for me. The Newburgh Conspiracy. This was a failed threat by leaders of the Continental Army in March of 1783. At the end of the American Revolution, George Washington successfully calmed the soldiers and helped secure back pay. Now, this is the mark of a great man and of a great leader. So the conspiracy was instigated by members in the Congress of the Confederation who circulated an anonymous letter in the Army camp at Newburgh, New York in March of 1783. Soldiers were unhappy they had not been paid for some time and that pensions that had been promised remained unfunded. The letter suggested they should take action against Congress to resolve the issue. George Washington stopped any serious talk of rebellion when he made an emotional address to officers, asking them to support the supremacy of Congress. Not long after, Congress approved a compromise agreement, funded some of the pay arrears, and granted soldiers 5 years full of pay and a lifetime pension of pay. Now, there is the actual story of what happened in the call for meeting when George Washington showed up. Here's how George Washington put aside. One sentence, George Washington was able to put down a rebellion. Washington gave a short but impassioned speech, now known as the Newburgh Address, counseling patience. His message was that they should oppose anyone who wickedly attempts to open the floodgates of civil discord and deluge our rising empire in blood. He then produced a letter from a member of Congress to read to the officers. This is a beautiful moment. He gazed upon it and fumbled with the letter without speaking. He then took a pair of reading glasses from his pocket, which were new. Few of the men had seen him wear them. George Washington then said, "Gentlemen, you will permit me to put on my spectacles, for I have not only grown gray, but almost blind in the service of my country." That caused the men to realize Washington had sacrificed a great deal for the revolution, just as much as any of them. Those were his fellow officers. That is the mark of greatness. That is what we should be looking for. Not only a great man, but a great man who surrounds themselves with great men, who are willing to tell a leader when they're wrong, and someone who can manage the leaders around them. Who do you think that is? Still think you'd vote for Kanye West for president? I don't know. I know there's a lot of people watching us this morning, but I think it's time for me to go. I'd like to ask you a favor, though. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'd be grateful to have you over there. It's been a great show, and we've had 300 people watching us this morning. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, I've got my own online store, apforlibertyshop.com. Check that out. As soon as the stream is over, type in AP for Liberty Shop. Check out all my awesome merch. George Washington Buddhas, Thomas Jefferson Buddhas, all kinds of great stuff. I'd love to see you over there at the AP for Liberty shop. And my wife, whenever you order a Buddha, always sends out a nice little sweet card with it. So make sure that you get that as well. It's hard to leave when there's such a big audience, but I actually have another show that I do, a radio program that airs at 2 p.m. Monday through Friday on the Real Talk Radio Network. So I got to let you go. All right. So check out the AP for Liberty shop, like, subscribe to my YouTube channel, the one that you're watching right now. And I want to see some of you all tomorrow morning on the Wake Up America show at Wake Up America.
Want an engaging website to boost your business?
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes, tapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire. Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.